Clay was standing at the end of my sidewalk. He was looking very disheveled, like distraught, like he'd been through something major, and he was scooting his foot around in the dirt like a scolded child, and I couldn't make sense of it. He didn't really have a lot to say, but so I walked up to him and I'm like, Clay, what's wrong? What's going on? Clay, what's wrong? What's going on? And he finally said to me, Cassie, there's been an accident. And I said, my God, Clay, what happened? What's going on? He said, there's been an accident. Tony was mowing in the middle, and there were two other migrant workers, Mexicans. They were brothers. They were mowing with Tony, and Tony was in the middle of them. One was a little piece ahead of him, and the other was a little piece behind him. Now, mind you, I'd always known that Tony worked with migrant workers, and there was a language barrier. He couldn't speak Spanish, of course, maybe a word or two here and there. And he always made it a joke to say, you know, that they called him loco and things like that, because he had wild hair and he was always cutting up, you know, to make people smile. Anyhow, the one mowing in front of Tony's tractor and bush hog caught on fire. Clay proceeded to tell me that Tony saw this, of course, and he stopped his tractor and ran over to try and help him get the situation under control. When he got to the worker's tractor that was on fire, he realized somehow the guy was able to tell him. They figured out there was no fire extinguisher, or they couldn't get to it, or there just wasn't one. And so Tony ran back to his tractor to get his. Tony grabs the fire extinguisher off of his tractor and ran back to help put the fire out. They got that situation under control, and Clay said that Tony walked back over to his tractor to resume working. Well, shortly after that, Clay said that Tony was seen slumped over the wheel of his tractor, steering wheel, and he crossed over 2 lanes of traffic, and when he hit a bump, he was thrown from the tractor, and at that point, the tractor and the bush hog ran him over. After he told me about the accident, Clay again went back to just being really silent and not saying much. Was bombarding him with questions, and I was saying, well, is he okay? How bad is he hurt? What hospital is he at? Clay, my God, talk to me. Is Tony alive? And he just looked up at me and he shook his head no. And at that point, I got physically ill, and I vomited on him. I vomited all over the front of Clay's shirt. I was screaming and I was crying, and I was more upset and scared and mortified than I'd ever been in my life. And I was just sick with instant grief and pain, and I didn't know what to do next. I looked at my daughter, Allie, who was standing there with me, and I said, get people here now. Get people here now. And it was just, everything was such a blur. But I hurt so bad to know that my husband, my precious husband, was chopped into pieces. The next time I saw my husband, he was in Ziploc bags. An entire person, pieces. And I was just devastated, more than you can imagine. And that was his last instant on earth. And I kept praying that he had no awareness, that maybe he was passed out and he didn't feel it when the blades chopped him up into pieces. It wasn't very long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. My entire yard was filled with dozens and dozens of people. I was walking around talking to people, trying to not focus on why they were all there. And I was trying to comfort other people. I was trying to offer glasses of tea or a sandwich, just something that would give me a purpose. And everybody was so devastated because this was just so horrific and unexpected. Everybody loved Tony. He was such a hard-working man. He was a simple guy. And he literally gave his life to provide for me and my girls.